Hello, everyone. Welcome to Wine Talk, where we uncork the wine to tell the truth. And I am so excited to start this series. You all have been asking, and yes, I'm finally doing it. I did Wine Talks a long, long time ago, but in this crazy world that we're in, and as Love Cork Screw got bigger, I didn't have enough time, but I found the time. And I'm so excited to introduce amazing experts from sommeliers to students, to people in the wine industry that I want to talk to. So what I do is I send them a bottle of Love Corkscrew. They have no idea what's going to arrive at their doorstep. I have no idea what they got until we're actually on the program. So I'm so excited to have Miss
Desiree Harrison.
Desiree is here. Desiree from Wino Noir. Is that correct?
That's right.
She is here, and I'm so excited. So please tell everyone about yourself.
Sure. Thank you so much for having me. Really excited to have this conversation with you. My name is Desiree, and I'm a wine educator. I'm an entrepreneur, and I am a creator. I teach at Napa Valley Wine Academy. I also run the Wino Shop where I sell wine merchandise. It's super fun and cute. And I also work with brands to help promote their brands.
That's amazing. And I really want to, and I definitely want you to open a bottle. Let's talk about Love Corkscrew first, and then we'll get into some great questions. I just actually just came to my mind. So what bottle did you get? What bottle did you get?
Oh, I got the Lampley Reserve Collection Demi Sec Sparkling Wine. And I was so excited to get this bottle. I've never seen it before. I'm quite familiar with Love Cork Screw. So I was super excited that it was sparkling. Do you want me to talk about what I think of it? Or are we going to
Well,
get
yes, I want you to talk about exactly what you think of it, and then I will get into the backstory behind the Lampley. You have a very special bottle from me right
Yes, I can tell. Love the label. It's so beautiful. I would love to hear from you more about who is on the label, but it's absolutely beautiful. And I'll be honest, I am not a huge sweet wine drinker. So when I saw Demi Sec, I was like, okay, I'm really interested in this. So I just opened mine and I am so impressed. I love it. It's not too sweet. The acidity is still there to balance out that touch of sweetness. And this is a wine that I would love to have with some sort of cheese or even just like after dinner as like a dessert. This is really good.
Yay! Yay! So excited. And to be completely transparent, you are the first to taste it outside of my team. I
No
kid you not,
way.
not lying. I am beyond excited.
What an honor.
So, yes, this is so exciting. So exciting. I'm telling you guys, this is totally not contrived. Like, this is totally real. That's happening right now. So, I'm super, super excited because the Lampley, so let me backtrack to Love Corkscrew. Love Corkscrew was created for consumers. It was for the people. It's for people who cannot pronounce Chianti, Bordeaux, and Chenin Blanc, and actually could care less to pronounce Viognier. And there is this great sector. This is what $130 billion industry between wine and spirits. And there's a great sector of people that get confused when they walk down the wine aisle. They're not sure, what to go for. They're not actually even sure what their flavor profile is that they really, really enjoy. But what do? They go for the label, they go for the price. Number three, they go for the taste. They'll go back for one and two and not really even like what they're drinking, but they're managing their expectations and they know exactly what they're going to get. So they're just like, I'm not even going to try something new. So the reason why I created Love Corkscrew was the simply fun double entendres, not taking wine so seriously, and just I always say enjoy it, drink it, don't overthink it. So it's made for the people. However, the lamplight. The lampley was created for paying homage to my lineage and heritage. I wanted something for myself. So when I thought of a reserve line, people always said, Chrishon, your last name is so powerful. It's rare and you need to use it for something. And we're not sure exactly what. So when I created the reserve line, I said, that's it. That's it, the lampley. The woman on that bottle is my mother. So that is an old picture of my mother. It just warms my heart every time I see it.
Wow,
So
a beautiful picture. Oh my goodness.
that's literally me going through the crates and finding the most vintage, amazing photos that I have of my family. So that one, the demi sec, definitely was when I thought of sparkling and I thought of it being from North Coast, Healdsburg area. I said, it's my mom. The Healdsburg area is one of the best in California, and I wanted her to be on that bottle for celebration. So celebrating life and celebrating my mother. So
I
there you
love
have it.
much. It is so beautiful. And you talking about your family and putting your mother's picture on it, it gave me chills because one of the things that I always think about in wine and working in wine, and I've had the privilege of traveling and visiting vineyards all over the world, really. And a lot of times, more times than not, vineyards and wine businesses are very deeply rooted in family.
Yeah.
Families have owned their land for years and years. And sometimes I think about, starting in the wine industry. I never knew about wine before I started working in wine. I never knew it existed as a career option. And I think about how it's hard for me to track my lineage, let alone have something passed down to me that's been in the family for generations, like a lot of wine families. So I think it's so beautiful to pay homage to your family and to just be so deeply rooted. That's beautiful.
And I always think that history has to start somewhere, right? So if
Yeah.
we're making changes now to this industry, if we're doing things as the 1% of this industry, we can start it now. We can start that line of passing it on. We always talk about what we want our legacy to be.
Yeah.
Why can't the legacy actually start with us?
You have
So,
to.
so as we're breaking all these glass ceilings, I said to myself, if I am a pioneer within this industry, then why wouldn't I start a great tradition? So that is exactly why. So I'm so excited for you to be drinking that. So tell us a little bit about your wine journey. I just had an amazing conversation actually yesterday with Shay Frechette from Washington, and it was so much fun talking about wine myths, what people perceive about wine. We talked about tainted wine. We talked about temperature control. We got into, the cork versus screw cap. So we got into some great technical things. We talked about the TCA that comes on the cork. So there's so many things we talked about. Is there one thing, one word, one thought that people overuse, underuse, don't use correctly, something that you think that can teach a little bit about wine to the masses?
So I teach wine classes, entry level wine classes, WSET level 1 and 2. So I get a lot of questions during those sessions. I find that people have the most difficulty just using the terminology or finding the terminology to talk about what they're experiencing on their palate. So for example, a lot of people will say this wine is dry, and maybe the wine is dry, but really what they're talking about is the tannin. They're talking about that textural, astringent feeling of dryness. So I think that is the hardest thing for people to grasp, is just the terminology to talk about what they're experiencing on the palate. And it takes practice. These are words that we don't. Tannin. Who in the world
Right.
uses
Who
that
just
word?
walks around using that, right?
Yeah, and even just things like, okay, this wine is really fresh and it makes my mouth water, and understanding the connection to acidity. Like, you don't really know that that's what acid is. You just
Right.
know it feels refreshing when you drink it. So putting those pieces together is one of the reasons that I really love wine education, because so many times I just see people have their aha moment. They're like, oh, that's what this is. Oh, I've been saying this wrong all along. But mostly just talking about what they're experiencing.
And when you have these conversations, are sometimes people surprised that you look like you do, who you are within this industry? Tell us just a little bit about some experiences you may have had.
When I first started working in the wine industry, my first like full-time gig when I decided to transition from my previous career in project management, I worked in sales. And I was younger. This was a few years ago. I'm a young Black woman, or I consider myself not even a woman because I was so young, but this little Black girl coming in, and there were plenty of times where maybe I couldn't pinpoint, or I couldn't definitively say like, hey, these people are being prejudiced towards me or they're racist, but I definitely noticed that I was not treated the same way as some of the older men coming in their suits and their briefcases. I just noticed the stark difference. So while I hadn't had any really overt instances, there was definitely a feeling of not belonging or feeling like I just did not fit in the space. But I fought through it. I'm still here working in the wine industry. It's so funny. My students now are just, I find that some of them are surprised, but because of my presence on social media and all the people I've connected with, there are so many people who are really excited to see a Black woman. I've gotten so many messages like, oh my goodness, I just saw you were my instructor. Wow, I cannot believe this. I can't believe it. And that's a beautiful feeling.
And that's what I'm so excited about, because I think about when I came up in the wine industry, there was just nothing. If anything, we saw a lot from the Mandela sisters, but it was very, 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 very sparse to who was in the industry. And a lot of the training that I got was definitely a lot of grassroots training, not so many classes and the WSET courses at the time. What do you see as the change that's happening from maybe the knowledge of us old heads versus the new school and what they're learning? Have you seen a lot of different directions that they're wanting to take, or does everybody want to own a wine label? Like what direction are these young folks going in?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I find that most people, when they want to work in the wine industry or they're inspired by something in the wine industry, their immediate thought is to go to owning a wine brand. Like, oh, I want to start a winery, or even people suggesting to me, like, oh, you should start a winery. You should start. I'm like, you all are saying it like it is this simple.
Like, done. So easy.
But what I love that I'm seeing now is that diversity is spanning across the wine industry. So we're seeing journalists, we're seeing more salespeople, we're seeing people working in distribution. So I think it's really great to see people outside of, just your main, I would say, glamorized versions of working in wine, which I feel like is having a wine brand. That's what people think of when they think of working in the wine industry. But it's so much more than that. And I think the more we talk about it and the more we see people that look like us in those roles, the more it'll become the norm for us to be everywhere in all rooms.
Yeah, when I talk to, and I mentor a lot of young entrepreneurs trying to get within the wine and spirit industry. And the first thing I think about is when I started out 10 years ago, I could not find one lawyer that knew anything about the federal permit that was of color that I needed to get. There was no one who knew within our BIPOC that knew how to get what I needed to get. And I was so angry, like I want to give you my business, take my money. But if people were saying, oh yeah, get a catering liquor license, or I'm like, okay, no, that's not what it is. So it was very disheartening. So I tell a lot of people now, there are so many moving parts to this industry, and there's so many places we as the wine brands, as the suppliers, need you. We need you to be the lawyers in the liquor industry that there's like a handful that know what they're doing. We need you in distribution. We need you to be a sommelier in some of these amazing restaurants to help us push through to get into these restaurants. We need you in so many different, in education, absolutely, because there's just this old school thought process of wine and how intimidating it is, that someone needs to see someone that looks like them to feel comfortable to say, you know what? I think I could do it. What takes a lot of memorization. You got to learn about a lot of river directions, but at the end of the day, you can actually do it. And I do have a question. I just read an amazing article in the New York Times talking about how the younger generation, I'm a Generation X, so I'm a little older, but how the younger generation is steering away from drinking wine. And they're saying within the next 10 to 12 years, we're going to see about a 20% decrease within people purchasing and enjoying wine. However, in that same article, it talked about that people are looking for wines with a purpose, whether it be diversity and inclusion, whether it be what I've now done to my labels, and that's putting the nutritional value on the back so they can understand what they're putting into their bodies. What have you seen in the change of the new wine drinkers, if you will?
Yeah, so I saw that article. I didn't read it. I think the title was like millennials aren't drinking wine or something really like
It was
click.
the next generation. I can't think of it either, but yes, yes.
So I haven't read that article, but I do know what you're referring to. Um, you know, I find that a lot of the research in the articles are saying that the younger generation or just people in general are caring more about the purpose and caring more about the nutritional facts. And I think that in some cases it's true, but I find that there's a little bit of dissonance between what people say they want and then what they actually purchase or what they do in their everyday life. So, saying you care about the nutritional facts. Well, now a lot of brands are doing that, but are you even reading it? Did you consider it? You know what I mean? So I'm curious to see how that storyline or how that idea continues to play out. I feel like people are saying that they care more about those things. I do think in a lot of cases the story and being sure that you aren't supporting brands that have really bad practices in the vineyard or they don't pay their workers well or things like that. I do think people feel strongly about. But in terms of like nutrition facts and even organic and sustainable, I'm really curious just to see how it evolves and how people understand it more because those words, sustainability, organic, they're kind of hard to define for the lay person. There's a lot of intricacies in the definitions. So if you say you want something that's organic, do you even know what that means? Or do you understand if it's organically farmed or if there's organic practices in the winery? There's a lot to be defined and there's a lot of education that needs to happen in order for those practices to really become important in the main stage of purchasing wine, if that makes sense.
Oh, it makes perfect sense. And it's so funny on the flip side, this old schooler here of breaking certain habits, whether it be Shay and I discussed about the foil caps. I'm not ignorant to it. I do know that what each year the Americans go through 465 million feet of foil. So I know how bad it is for the environment. And definitely, we talked about, the plastic corks. That's terrible for the environment. I don't do the plastic corks. However, I do foil on the top of my bottles. So Shay was saying that for next harvest, she's not going to put foil on it. And I'm like, that is great. But there's this little piece of me that I'm like, ooh, I don't know if I'm ready to give up certain parts of that old school. I can't have twist caps all on my wine bottles and it's called Love Cork Screw. It's not called wine twist cap. So it's like
about that.
So there's certain things I just can't give up. So I guess I'm curious just in general, this old school thought process like myself, are we dying off or are we continuing that type of old school mentality and how to enjoy wine and the sexiness of it and that it takes time and using the wine keys instead of the rabbits and like what is are we still around, are we going to be okay?
uh, you know It's so funny. I think I'm not old school by any means, but there are some things, for instance, I always use a corkscrew. It's like so my someone told me about how Apple, when you purchase a MacBook or you purchase a computer, when you take off the top of the box, it's a little bit tough to open. It kind of like it's a little bit tough to open, and that is apparently by design. It's building up the anticipation. It's a little
Wow.
bit of a struggle to open up the box, and I find that that is so true with opening up a bottle of wine. The anticipation of like screwing in the corkscrew and using the lever to lift it up. It's just the buildup. It's a part of the experience. So I love things like that. But there are just so many gadgets on the market. Everybody's trying to make everything easier now. I love to use the knife on the foil cutter on the corkscrew to
Me
take the
too.
foil off. And
Yes.
during the pandemic, there was a crazy trend where people were just pulling off
Pulling
the
it off.
entire.
Yep.
And I'm
Yep.
just like, I get you can do that, but what happened to like the tradition and the experience of opening a bottle of wine? So I think a lot of it is going to change with the younger generation and the more casual drinker. I mean, everybody's not into it like an enthusiast. They just want to have a glass of wine, so those things don't matter. But I don't think the experience or that old school feeling of just loving on your wine and caring about it, I don't think that'll ever go away. It'll always be a split of people.
I hope you're right because I want to carry on that tradition because I love it. I just, that's one of the reasons why I got into wine. It was the experience. It was breaking bread with individuals and enjoying dinner and that conversation and whatever that story brought. Doesn't necessarily have to be about the wine, but while you're opening the wine bottle, normally there's some story that started. It's not like silence, like it's always something. And in pouring it and making a joke about it or laughing about it or whatever it is, I just think it's such an experience that I enjoy. Now, one more topic. So I doing a lot of press lately, with Black History Month, as well as with Women's History Month coming. And one of the segments I did recently was for wine cocktails. Now, I'm old school. However, I know how to keep up with the youngins, right? So I said, okay, I know what I need to do. I need to create some cocktails. I had went to bartender school back in the day, so I know how to conjure up great cocktails. So I made three cocktails. They were absolutely delicious. I did a margarita with my Pinot. I did a martini with my Concord, and I forgot what the third. Oh, my rosé. I did a spritzer, and they just went ballistic over it, right? Before it was like some of the stories are like, we've done that, we've done pairings, we've done this, but wait, you got wine cocktails? Oh my God. So now there's this funny thing, right? This imbalance that I have. My old school thought is, oh, don't ruin the wine by making a wine cocktail. But then there's this other side of me. You know what? I got to keep up with the times. What are your thoughts on mixing wines and making cocktails and things like that? Is that something that these younger generations are loving? Because they love this for my segment that I did. What are your thoughts on it?
Thinking now that you have a sparkling in the collection, you got to do a French 75 with the sparkling. I
Yes.
love a good wine cocktail. I personally just think it's a way if you have like a little bit left at the end. I think you should still enjoy the wine as it is. And then if you just have a little left at the end, you can make a wine cocktail. But wine cocktails are all the rage right now. I love a simple cocktail, so as long as there's a few ingredients, I'll try it. But for the most part, I'm just gonna enjoy the wine. But I do love a French 75.
That's funny. I went to a girlfriend's house for brunch and they made me the entire time bartender and I had to make French 75s the entire time, and they're like, whatever you're doing to that, I'm like, my hands are anointed, I got you. They're like, whatever you're doing to it, I'm like, I got you. So yes, I think I will try that. And my last question is, what's up with you? What's next for you?
Oh, that's a great question. I have so many things going on. I run the wino shop where I sell wine apparel. I'm wearing one of my shirts now. I know
Love it.
the future of wine is black, but I just my merchandise will be sold in a retail wine shop for the first time. So super exciting in Virginia. So hoping to expand more. I have a lot of new designs coming to the shop. So that is super exciting. And what else? I think that's been my main focus lately is just doing things for the shop. I am coming out with a podcast soon called Where There Is Wine. So would love to have you on the show.
I would love to.
Stay tuned for that. But yeah, if you want to keep up with me, social media is the best way to figure out what I got going on. I'm
And
at
what's that?
Bar
Okay.
on Instagram, at the Wino Shop on Instagram. And then I've also been playing around with TikTok. So follow me there too.
I love it. Thank you. Thanks for being one of my first wine talks. And definitely thank you for enjoying something that means so much to me. Again, I had no idea what bottle you had, and it warmed my heart that you received the Lampley. And I'm so excited you enjoyed it. So thank you for everything. Chin chin to you. Cheers. And thanks for being on the Wine Talk.
Thank you.
Thank you.